What is the role of being a coach? So here's the thing I'm going to tell you about. I've seen a lot of amazing coaches, and I've had a chance to work with some in the NBA, Major League Baseball, a lot of different levels, high school coaches, college coaches. And I will say this, the number one thing that a coach must be is a leader. They have to lead. And that doesn't mean that you just tell them exactly what they're doing. They have to do it. But you have to have an understanding of the system of how you're going to lead. Now, there are different ways of leading. Okay? If you're leading from the top down, it's generally easier because this is what we're going to do, and then we go forward and we do it. If you're leading side to side with your peers, sometimes you have co-coaches, you have to work more together. If you're a leader as a coach and you're an assistant coach, then you're leading from the bottom up. You have to be able to know the difference of what your role is within that team. If you're the head coach, ultimately everything is your responsibility. It's all going to fall down on you. If you're an assistant coach, you have to know, okay, what's my relationship with the coach? Can I speak freely what I really think I can say or not? If I'm co-coaching, because sometimes it happens that parents want to coach together, they want to coach a team, we're doing this side by side. So you want to be able to work together as you go forward. But understand, number one thing, your role is you are a leader. Next thing is, and again, when I do a lot of clinics, I ask a lot of questions, and the number one thing I talk about is, are you a teacher? How many of you are a teacher? And a lot of times they don't raise their hand and they're kind of going, huh? And I go, no, not are you a teacher by profession or by trade, but are you a teacher? And then you realize you're a teacher. You're a teacher, you're an instructor, you're a mentor. Your job is to lead them, but you lead through example and by teaching. Okay, very important. After that, it's going to talk about being organizer and planner. You have to prepare the season. We talk about practice planning for your season, practice planning for each practice. You also have to be organized to understand what's going to happen and have a plan for your games, have a plan for your practices. You're going to need to make sure that you have your lineup card ready for your baseball game. You're going to know that you're going to have your scorebook and what you're going to do with your basketball teams as you're going forward. Very important that you want to teach and make sure that you know when you're going out there that you are able to be prepared as you go forward. You know, if you're playing soccer or rugby or whatever sport it is, you have to be ready to have a plan for what you're going to do throughout the season. At times you're going to be a counselor. I remember speaking with a guy, again, one of these guys with a British accent, kind of funny, and he was a great, great teacher of the game. But we talked about it a little bit. He says, you know, I can't connect to my kids. I'm finding it to struggle to get them, that's my worst accent possible, right? I'm trying to struggle to get them to motivate them. How do I get them to work together and make that happen? So we had some conversations about it. This is what we came up with, is that he needed to be a better listener. You see, active listening, I'm going to teach you active listening. You may or might know this, but it's interesting because when a kid says something, sure, anybody for that matter, says, I feel this or I think this, active listeners will say, oh, you think this? Okay, because you validate that feeling and you say, well, then let's try this. You give them a suggestion. Rather than running them over at times, you want to make sure you're listening with them and working with them. That's what's going to help them to really keep that trust with you, respect and value the communication, be able to move forward as you make that happen. I can remember a player came up to me and he was a really good baseball player, but he was playing on the rugby team. And he's like, well, how do I translate the two? I'm thinking, man, how does baseball and rugby come together? But he wanted to play the two. So he asked me about it. I said, you know, the best thing you can do is you go to your coach and you ask him specifically, what is my role? What is it that I'm supposed to know? Once the players know that and can understand that, then they can start to put the pieces of the puzzle together for themselves. Hopefully they go to camps to get some training so it makes it easier for you when you coach them. Trust me, if you get kids that have played at camps and clinics and had trainings and then come to you and have a basic foundation, it's a lot easier to coach them than ones that have never played before. But remember, at times you're going to be a counselor. They may have a problem at home. They may have a problem because dad is mad at them. Maybe they have a problem because they didn't get their homework done. And you got to explain school comes first. Right? Those are things. Next up is role model. You're a role model. You got to remember that what you do, how you do it, is going to work. If you don't want them using curse words, then you can't swear. If you want them to be on time at practice, you got to be on time at practice. All those little things. If you want them to dress a certain way, dress a certain way. Coach Wooden always had his players tuck the shirts in. You know, he wore his shirt tucked in, had them, because that was part of his belief of being professional and clear and how you're going to represent yourself as a team. If you want them to show up in a certain attire before the games, some high school teams are going to show up and they want their kids wearing a sports coat and a tie in high school. That's the attire. Well, coach, you better do the same thing. So whatever you're going to use, remember, you're going to role model the behavior. Okay? And remember that the nonverbal communication you're going to use is going to be equal to, if not greater than, the words you're going to say. I'll give you an example. Role model again. Let's say you're carrying a football, right? And you want to throw the football. Well, if you throw the football funny, believe it or not, they may make fun of you and try to do the same thing. So make sure that you demonstrate when you do that you have someone who can demonstrate that. The next on the list is demonstrating. And I'll be honest, you guys have all seen the Volkswagen commercial where the dad's playing catch with the kid and the kid throws the ball all funny like this and the dad goes, "Attaboy, point your shoulder and throw it your arm," and the dad throws the exact same way the kid did. And you go, "Oh my goodness, this poor kid." And he's trying, we appreciate that, but ultimately he's saying the right things, but his role modeling, what he's seeing, is different. My recommendation is if you can't do it the right way, get a kid who can do it. Get someone who can do it and have them demonstrate as you talk about it. That's part of the process because kids learn different. They're going to learn by what they hear, by what they see, by what they try. Okay? And if they see you doing something that undermines your authority because you can't do it very well, they're going to look at you and go, they're going to lose that trust and it's going to break down your gold plating to them. And we don't want to do that. The last thing is you got to be a motivator. Now I'm going to tell you a story about Coach Wooden about motivation, which I thought was kind of interesting. He's never been a huge believer of the rah-rah, let's go out there and kick somebody's butt and get after it and make everybody so motivated because motivation is temporary. Because guys are going to go out there and the first are motivated. Let's do this thing. We're going to box. And all of a sudden they get in the face and they lost their motivation, right? What do? He's more a believer in preparation. So here's a story that I thought was kind of funny. He was coaching years ago, I believe in Purdue, and he was talking about, this was before he got to UCLA, and he said he had the father came in and gave this whole speech. This is what we're going to do, and the prayer, and we are motivated, and we're going to do this. And it was rumbling, and they were kicking the floor, and they were all excited, and they went running down the thing, and they came to the corridor to get in the gym, and someone had forgot to unlock the door, and they couldn't get in. They had to go all the way to the other side of the gym to get in. Well, they lost all that motivation and went out there. And he said they played flat in the entire first half of the game. So for me, I think motivation is important, and you have to know how to motivate them. But don't make it your number one thing. Because motivation and excitement and fire without substance is not going to be good. At some point, it's going to come down to, can they play the game? Do they have the fundamentals as they move forward?